Sanjeev, thank you so much for doing this for us. Welcome to Caizin Commune podcast, Who Has a Clue, where we talk to people who indeed do have a clue, such as yourself. And I am absolutely glad I've picked this topic with you, layoffs, which is absolutely pertinent. We saw a smaller tide of layoffs towards the end of last year. And beginning this year, just about 1 month down and 6 days into the second month, we have seen over 330,000 layoffs all over the globe, really. Of course, primarily being US and the UK market, and rather Europe more than UK, and some in India, of course, which are directly dependent on those systems. Welcome aboard. I'm thrilled and excited to talk to you on this topic. Would you mind just and give us a little brief what you do? You've been around for a very long time. I'm very well aware of that fact. Just a brief introduction, please, for our listeners.
Sure, Ameya. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me for this. And as I told you, you kept me busy for last couple of days. It was good learning for me also. I have been in the entrepreneurship for a long time now. I finished my engineering from College of Engineering, Pune. And then a couple of friends, we decided to start our own business, which was long time back. Okay. So, I finished in my college in '79, and since then I have been an entrepreneur. I did work for a couple of years to get a little bit of hang about programming, but that was a year or two, and have been running business always in IT and software, starting with punch card days where we used to go to TIFR mainframes to create our programs.
How awesome is that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll punch the cards, submit the programs. Next day we go for checking the error lists, come back on the third day to probably recompile and get the running version. So it was a long time ago. My business started with data processing, then software development from FoxPro days to Foxbase to FoxPro to Visual Basic to .NET to whatever, it's happening now. So yeah, that's my brief. I had business in Mumbai for a long time and then shifted to Pune. This is my third venture, which is iWorkTechnologies Private Limited. We do offshore development and have our own product in learning.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Thank you for that. And I'm just going to give a brief to our listeners on what topic this is going to be about. Layoffs invoke a certain kind of an emotion in employees and employers both. And I can tell you that it is largely a sympathy and empathy. It is extremely an emotional process. Though it may seem like certain decisions are ruthless in the way they are announced and executed, but I wanted to cover the entrepreneur side of it. And the reason why I definitely chose you for this topic is because you have been through multiple cycles of recession, which seems to be the primary factor, a general slowdown in the industry, in consumption, and all of that, which is driving these layoffs. It's not just non-performance of entrepreneurs specifically, or companies or organizations, but it is fueled from certain external factors also. But before we dig deep, I wanted to kind of just pick your brain on, do you personally have a very simplistic definition of recession? What does recession mean to you?
What I can say is, not getting into too much of jargon and statistics, and that's what you wanted, because anyone can Google and find out a whole lot of statistics and, trends that will say that if this happens, there is a recession. If that doesn't happen, there is a recession. Sometimes it will be true, sometimes it will be false. People have their own ways of looking at it. But for whatever I have observed and seen in my career as an entrepreneur, and in general, which can be, said, is when growth of a particular, you can say, company, organization, country starts declining. So basically, all of us want to grow. All of us want to enhance our knowledge. All of us want to earn money. Companies would like to make profit. They are offering services, products. So all this is happening on the one hand, and to sustain it, they want to make profit. So when any company or any individual, from an individual level to global level, I would say, anytime when growth stops, decay starts. That's what they say. Because you cannot remain at the same level. I cannot say that, I'm happy where I am, अच्छा चल रहा है, and I just want to be at this level. Why earn more? Why grow more? Why learn more? That cannot happen. When you stop growing, your decay will start. And that is what I think what a recession is in a global term, where companies, where countries start, reducing their output. That's where, they start fearing. There is a fear factor that sets in,
Right.
So that's where, we can call that is what is recession. And that's what probably is happening to us now. Companies try to.
I love that. It's almost like, I mean, how do you explain the recession to a 5-year-old? I think you pretty much answered that question as well. Yes. I, I completely agree with you. So stopping growth, and that's where decay starts. It's a very interesting perspective to look at it. Is there a difference in the different recession cycles that you have been through? Do you see any difference now versus how it has been in the past?
Ameya, actually, individual as an entrepreneur and my business, it has not affected much, or I did not see much of a difference, because probably when we go through our discussions later, we'll see that, how you can prepare for a recession and then bear that brunt. But this recession, I thought, was fueled definitely by an unknown factor. COVID came in, and many industries had to shut down. And sometimes it's, loss of something is gain of someone else. And that's what has happened. Travel industry, food industry, so many of them had to really shut down because there was no movement. And that gave boost to our industry. And, we grew heavily. So in this recession, I thought that IT industry got a real boost due to some of the other industries, industries who did not do well. Many times it may not happen. So many of the earlier recessions could have, damaged the entire, all the businesses. And so some to that extent, I would say this was a little different. Probably in 2001 or 2009, almost all the industries had been affected.
Right. Oh, that you actually brought me to a very interesting point. So yes, we actually saw uncontrolled, unperceived growth because of COVID. It came all of a sudden. And of course, other factors which kind of fueled the whole focus on digitization, remote work. So it did open up opportunities for a lot of sectors and verticals, and that's how actually IT also benefited largely. And so yeah, it could be a factor that we saw a large spike in starting 2020, 21, 22, and now it's possible that it's going back to the whole sustenance level. It's quite possible. Yes, that's a very nice way of looking at it. But does that mean there are any early signs of recession? As in, so obviously maybe COVID is one, then the war may be the another. But is it possible to preempt such signs?
We have two categories, so to say. One is where you may be able to predict. Many of cases you are not able to predict. Like, say act of God, there's something suddenly happens, there is a tsunami, there is a earthquake, there is, what happened on 9/11 or COVID time, pandemic time. So these are the cases where nobody knows what's going to happen. Probably astrologers may, and they may, predict it, but otherwise it's very difficult. war kind of situation. Again, some of them may say that war, there are early signs, but I would categorize these global factors where it's very difficult for anyone to
Right.
predict. But there will be some other factors which can be predicted, or I would put it this way, that recession is going to happen. There are going to be ups and downs in our life, in a
Correct.
company, in a family, in a country. That's the way the life is. There are going to be ups and downs. It's going to be sinusoidal. There'll be waves and there'll be nodes. And what do we do? This is the truth. This is going to happen.
Right.
It has happened over several years, several lifetimes. So you can prepare yourself for that. And
Right.
probably with experience, business owners, entrepreneurs will start taking proper care when they start a business. So it actually will also depend on the company culture.
Right.
So many companies will make sure that when they are growing, they grow organically. They do not take any risky or hasty decisions which may hamper. They may show big gains in the short term. Not taking names, but there are cultures and organizations who have a mandate to do profit in
Yes.
your tenure. So I become a head of an SBU, and I get a mandate that your SBU has to make profit, come what may, and then I'll do whatever I can to earn that profit, and that may land in mid and long term problems with the organization. So there are many do's and don'ts that companies can follow. I'm not really advising anything, but this is I'm speaking from my own experience.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
yeah. So every company will have their own culture, they will have their own do's and don'ts, but definitely you need to have a good amount of future outlook.
Right.
Also, sometimes what
Sanjeev,
happens.
before you jump to your next point, I just wanted to kind of highlight that you made very interesting points, a couple of points right now. So you said you spoke about the inevitability of recession, which it is bound to come, especially when you go through the economic cycles, which are not going to be, they're not going to be very predictable, and they're not going to stay the same for a long amount of time. There will be spikes, there will be downs, and it all depends on how we prepare for it and respond to it. So yeah, you actually rightly mentioned. So there are some company cultures who focus on being opportunistic, and they may be heavily capitalist in nature. So that certain verticals, certain business verticals may not be meant to last. They were made for, like I know in COVID also there were companies which just randomly started manufacturing PPE kits, and because the requirement spiked, so everybody needed PPE kits, even for travel, even domestic travel or international. PPE kits were everywhere. So manufacturing cheaper or cost reduced PPE kits kind of became the need of the hour. These companies stayed around just for about a couple of years and not more than that. So it was, I think, kind of pretty obvious that they're not meant to last. Whenever COVID goes away just as fast as it came, some things will definitely go back to normal. It happened with a lot of work from home activities as well. There were apps which kind of productivity apps which helped you stay productive, work from home. They saw a decline in user adoption, obviously, because now people have gone back to office. So yeah, the point I'm getting to is that I think as employees also, they can be pretty much aware of this fact. So whenever they are working for an employer, or whether they're working on a certain product vertical or or any kind of a segment, industrial segment, I think it is not hard to see through that certain initiatives are meant to profit off the circumstances, and they will, of course, that scenario is bound to change. Thank you for highlighting that. That is actually a very interesting point. Yes.
Many times that's what happens, people or companies. And there is also culture of startups now, where there are many innovative ideas that are coming in. And again, I would say there are two kinds of entrepreneurs there. One who form a company and they want to add value to the society. They will offer some good service or some product, And there may be some other entrepreneurs, businessmen, who are there to get a quick buck. And so when startups get big funding, they, again, I don't know, good or bad, but that's the culture now. They have to grow. They have to grow not organically, but they have to go inorganically. They
Yes.
have to show profits in not 10 years, but in 2 years. And if they don't, so, this kind of things does put a lot of pressure. And I've never been through that, so probably I have not experienced it, but that must be putting a lot of pressure on business people, take decisions which are not going to be sustainable. And this in turn is going to, that company is going to be in recession. So,
Correct. Correct.
yeah, so, a company can get into a recession, industry can get into a recession. So that way it can extrapolate,
Correct. Correct.
So factors like, looking at the competition, standard factors, you always be on the move, look at your competition, if there is any disruptive product that is coming in, which is going to change your business. So all these things need to be monitored. So one aspect of it is, again, many of them may not agree with me, but do your business cautiously.
Right.
So,
Right.
again, I'm speaking from my experience that has worked so far.
True.
Many of them will not, they may like to have huge growth and go and, do business in that manner.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
I think when people or even businesses set very stretch targets, as they call it, like you really have to get ambitious ahead of yourself and set yourself a 5-year plan. And like you rightly pointed out, if there is investor pressure or performance, then you are bound to bank on certain ideas which may in the short term look very, very lucrative, but may not really have a very lasting future. Very nicely summed up. Thank you, Sanjeev. But okay, now let me move to the other part of it. Now let's assume, so you actually very interestingly said that the company may go into a recession, whereas the rest of the world probably may be performing absolutely well because of certain decisions that the company may take. The industry in which the company is working, that may go into recession because of several other economic factors. And then of course, the whole world or the whole global, that may go into recession, which could drive the company into that. We will not go into the smaller space where the people benefit out of recession also. There are opportunities in every area, just the way there were opportunities in COVID as well. But when that happens, what do you think is the first response? What should be the first response? I mean, I understand that just acknowledging that this is coming our way, we can actually see it. The tide is going to hit us pretty soon. And I mean, I can tell you that avoiding any kind of knee-jerk reactions, just to like getting into some kind of a hustle and just scrambling around, getting very nervous about it, I think that is not going to help at all. It's I know that it just puts in a lot of anxiety. It puts a lot of pressure. The concept of being alone at the top hits even more than anything else. Self-doubt creeps in. We live with all those emotions, and when especially the validation fails, where we have invested a lot of time and energy into that, it becomes hard to play to your strengths, right? So I mean, you already know that you've played your marbles well. You know how you wanted to respond to all kind of changes. We have done certain kind of risk management in finances, also done risk management in people procurement, in talent acquisition, all of those things. But I think to just stick it out with tried and tested methods, which have our own, from our own personal experience, that kind of works in my favor at least. So I have always found out that the low phase of the business or the company is actually the time to kind of, focus on other things which otherwise you may not have focused. The business pressure, of course, gives you performance to deliver. Delivery is very important, and especially in software. But when that is not there, maybe a little low in the business, we definitely focus on other aspects. So that's how I have personally dealt with things around me, how things are changing around me. But yeah, what do you think? What is the first line of response generally when it hits home?
Again, first line of response will depend on the kind of organization. Probably again, like you said, smaller organizations, entrepreneur-driven organizations, their response will be quite different from mid-level organizations. Let me categorize them into three parts. One is owner-driven, second is owner-driven but professionally managed, and third is corporates, limited companies, big companies. For companies like ours, where buck stops at you, as you said, you have done everything. The risk management is in place. You know that, you have enough buffer. You have employees who are working with you for years, and then there is some steady business, there is some speculative business, everything is there. And then recession hits you. So, our reactions will not be jerky. We will never run helter-skelter, because and again, on the basis of experience, number of years you are in this business, you know that this is cyclic. So if you weather this, if you, handle it coolly, there is going to be a change sooner or later. So definitely, no necessity of showing any signs of hasty decisions. So that is probably what happens in case of smaller organizations. So they'll stay put. They will just keep on doing what they can, cut costs
Right.
at several levels, and try and stay afloat. For mid-level and professionally managed organizations, probably what may happen is, again, so in smaller organizations, though profit is the motive, that's how, you are running this company for so many years. So definitely profit is important, but that is not the only goal. So you can take a call, you can take a beating and run for a few years. Now that may not be the case if someone is running it professionally. So I'm running it professionally and my mandate is to earn profit. So I will try and see what best I can do to cut costs.
Right.
So that's for the middle level. And for limited companies, I think it's huge pressure from everywhere, starting from governments to investors to shareholders to whatnot.
Correct. General public, yes, equity holders and all of them. Yeah.
Everybody is going to pressurize you because they are looking at your your growth, they're looking at your profitability, and probably many other sub vendors are dependent on you, and they are going to be, so everybody is going to be jittery, and
Correct.
they will have to take some hasty decisions.
Right.
I should not say that they'll have to, they do take sometimes, they need not actually, They need.
Right.
They
So,
need not. They need.
no, you're right. You're right. So when it comes to cost management, right? I mean, it comes down to that even if you have to move into sustenance where you see that there's going to be a dip in income, which means so obviously it's going to eat into your profit. So let's even not assume that profits are going to happen. Now, when it's going to eat in your own operational capital for the company, you are definitely going to cut costs. And I think primarily layoffs is all about stopping doing something, right? I mean, it's obviously that you reinvest your profits in the business, and then when you reinvest into certain areas, you're obviously trying to plan for the future. You're planning for the longevity of the business and the company, and obviously give great work, good work for your people as well. So when recession happens and when you know that income is not coming, obviously you have to decide on whether to pursue something which you have otherwise anyway probably undertaken. That fact somehow gets overlooked, and it's not like I personally, I mean, I would, because I've been through the entrepreneurial journey, I'm more on probably this part of the game than the other part of it, because I understand what entrepreneurs go through, and no matter how harsh and that feels, I think everybody needs to be cognizant of the fact that some things will continue to stay for the betterment of the business, and something will have to stop. Um, but when it comes to cost management and stuff like that, do you think layoffs are absolutely like inevitable? As in, why is so it may seem, I'm not suggesting that layoffs is the first immediate reaction that they take. They try to see which employees can we keep to bear the salaries of and not, and probably let them go. And of course, there are many other factors that this decision may be based on. But why layoffs? What do you think? Why would they turn to employees?
See, so taking a clue from our earlier point, where there will be companies, big corporates, who will have this policy of hire and fire. So they want to hire when there's business, and they want to fire when there's no business. So some of these companies, we know, some some managers or some owners who have taken very hasty decisions of laying off people, and that puts a fear factor into minds of others, and that becomes a rolling kind of thing. But that is not necessary most of the times. So what I think is, in actually, but in case of IT industry in particular, if you look at the cost structure, and that's very different in manufacturing and in services. In our industry, the staffing cost is 40 to 60%.
Very high,
In
yes.
smaller organizations like ours, it can be 70%, 75%, at times 80%. So when there is recession, so when we are saying there is recession, there is drop in growth. So drop in growth will mean my sales are dropping, my profits are going to go down. I need to continue my business. There are many dependent people on the, there are in the business. So the first reaction of most of the companies then is to cut cost, and what better than, laying off in our industry, Because if it's, forming 50, 60, 70, 80% of your cost, and you see a particular segment of your business not doing well, or you've hired more, there's bench, and that's not going to give you a profitable business for next couple of months or years till the recession stops. First decision is layoff, which is unfortunate, but people do, resort to that. And that's what happens actually.
True. I mean, I think it is extremely hard to be empathetic to entrepreneurs. I mean, of course, because for a lot of people, their jobs are everything, and probably many livelihoods depend on these jobs. It's understandable. There are loans to be repaid, home loan, car loan, whatever it may be. There may be other financial obligations as well. So I can understand why it is hard to be empathetic with the entrepreneurs. But as you rightly said, the cost structure is so heavily it caters heavily towards salaries and acquisition as well. I just wanted to kind of put it out there because, in my personal opinion, in fact, it's very hard to recover from a cost of a layoff because not only have you lost people, but there are going to be certain engagements, their activities, which are going to stop with them. So even if it is a research project, if it is a project where it is an upskilling project, you're developing capability in your company to be able to deliver somewhere. So the idle cost of the bench, etc., right, where you're investing your people to learn other tools, be it AI or ML, which you're not doing today, but now because the trend, you can already see the trend going that way, you want to continue investing in those projects, but now the cost structure does not allow it. So I completely understand when you say that, with them, that also kind of goes away. And the recovery cost of a layoff is actually very high, which I think goes kind of unnoticed, in my opinion, many times, because everybody sees these high numbers, 10% of workforce laid off and stuff like that. But I think the companies would actually have to spend twice that amount now to actually get those kind of people back again and restart those engagements and projects, right? So in that scenario, though we already covered the cost structure and the financial obligations of a company, do you think layoffs can be saved?
Definitely they can be saved. You see some of the organizations, they will have a hire fire policy. They will fire people, and 6 months later they'll start hiring them again.
Right.
I don't know really, what kind of decision making that is, but it has happened. We've seen it that happen. So whether layoffs can be saved, there is both the answers yes and no. Let me first say yes, where we can save layoffs. Again, going back to our earlier discussions and points, where if you are managing a company which is managed cautiously, you know what are going to be the risks in your business, and you're increasing the costs, both of staffing and other overhead costs, in a manner which is sustainable. Uh, and you are able to create enough buffer within your organization to handle such kinds of situations, Now, once you are definitely knowing that there is going to be a downturn, like, some of the businesses run like there is nobody's, the world is going to end tomorrow, and they will just keep on expanding. Not thinking of there will be, rather, I won't say there will be a downturn, and what do you do at that point in time? So run the organization cautiously. In case of, organizations like, we've touched upon that, VC funding, you get VC funding and you get onto a hiring spree. Well, there is a mandate to do that. So all these kinds of things where, you can avoid ruthless, rather risky decisions, increasing unnecessary costs. Like, I heard, I saw some of the top manager of a company saying that he was seriously looking at reducing perks of employees. Now, sometimes you go overboard. And I mean, you and I know that our industry, IT industry, we are uh, handled with too much of golden gloves,
Correct.
You see your same, colleague who's working in other industry, some mechanical or electrical industry, and the way their growth had happened, I'm saying financially.
Correct.
And the way the expectations in IT industry are, it is unsustainable, I feel.
True.
And so if you be a little cautious, layoffs can be saved. This may seem a little idealistic, but we have weathered that, for so many years.
Right.
So it is possible. Well, in some cases, it is not possible, where something suddenly happens, like COVID. And what do restaurant owners do? Or what do travel agencies or aircraft companies do? If the business has stopped, then you stop. So in some cases where there is no way, you will have to resort to layoffs.
Correct.
In most of the cases, I would say you can, stop layoffs. There will be ways and means. You have to be innovative. You have to be compassionate. You have to be, just look at it that way.
Absolutely. So you actually touched both. I love how this conversation is happening on both the extremes. So thank you for doing that. So you're absolutely right. The acquisition cost had gone up. The candidate acquisition cost and employee acquisition cost in IT had gone up a lot in the last 2 years. The same company which was rewarding candidates and attracting them by giving them motorcycles and stuff, they are the same people who have actually laid off those people as well, and also retained the motorcycles. So that was the news. That was the news which was circulating on LinkedIn also quite a lot. And then, of course, yes, if you can save the layoffs, I think most entrepreneurs, like the owner-driven companies that you're talking about, they always do that. I think it always happens. I won't be surprised if they take a cut in their own salaries, or actually not take salaries at all, and make sure that at least 5 other employees they want on board for the future of the company, they would retain them. I think that goes without saying. But of course, the metric is very different when you have a shareholder price or a share price to keep up. Your profitability has to be maintained, etc. I think those obligations will stay. All right. So now that we also acknowledge that in some cases layoffs may be inevitable, and I completely also understand that layoffs can be really hard on employees, right? Not just about the financial aspect, but there could be a lot of apprehension stepping in. People thinking if they are not good enough. People think that retention may be a privilege, but that may not always be the case. It's not like if some people are being retained versus others are being laid off, they have this sense of privilege of any sort. I would like to actually go out and state that may not be actually true. Fear of losing their jobs continuously stays because the company does not really announce as such, like, okay, we are done with layoffs, and maybe other people can feel secure. So this sense of insecurity, I think, very clearly hampers the retained employees' performance also. So this uncertainty kind of looms over, kind of shadows everything on the whole stack of the organization, really. Um, I also feel that there is this sense of betrayal and loss of trust. You have seen people spending 15 plus years in companies who have been laid off, which has actually come as a surprise to them. And maybe they have not been followed up with a justification from the organization, which I think can happen, and it might have happened eventually as well. But this feeling also, it gets very difficult in the way of finding the next job, and you suddenly have this doubt rising. What if I get my next job and even that is not uncertain? What happens then? It hurts both ways. So it hurts the company, its own reputation, the founder's reputation as well. I guess even though layoffs may be inevitable, they're reprimanding for everyone. It punishes everyone equally, really. But what is your take? Have you had any kind of these difficult conversations with employees? Any first-hand experience?
Fortunately, no, Ameya, so far. And I'm really fortunate that I
Oh,
had
absolutely.
do it, and I hope that stays. You know, I, I would like to say that it will be as difficult to the owners, entrepreneurs, as it is to the employees. It's not an easy decision. Also, there is a cultural difference, as you said, in India. IT industry is booming. In US or in Western countries, the culture is a little different, I suppose. They are used to, like they are used to getting pink slips. I heard some people, they went to the office on Monday and they couldn't use their card to get in. So the
What a way to find out.
yeah, what a way. And the the guard told him, oh, you did not see your email yesterday night.
Oh my
And
God.
they
Okay.
had to go back. They had to go back. So it is cruel, actually.
Yeah.
It is. But people are used to those kinds of things in the Western world, so they may feel sad, but it's not heartbreaking for them, probably. In India, if you do that, and I'm thankful that I have never had to do that, people will start crying actually in front of you.
True.
The kind of
Emotion.
culture
Yeah.
we have. Luckily, as you said, many of the organizations in India, barring like banks or big companies, they have a tradition of people joining there and retiring from there. So probably our parents have done that. They joined a
Yes.
particular
Yes.
company and they retired from there. So to that extent, it is different. In India, it's totally different. So it depends on what kind of relationship one has with the employees. So maybe in US or in Europe, employees will feel definitely bad. But here, if a particular entrepreneur or a manager or owner has to take that decision, that will be probably the last thing sure he may like to do. So they would have looked at all the options. Also, what happens, Amaze, and you have run your own organization. Besides, a professional relationship, we have emotional
Oh,
relationship
yes.
with employees. So you know their, families. You have helped them. Probably you have given advances. There are
Yes.
sickness in the family. So the things are, and I won't say it's happening in the small organization like ours. It must have been happening in larger organizations also, not big corporates, but many other organizations which are owner driven, and where someone will walk in and he'll say, this is what has happened, and we just go out of the way to help that person. So to that extent, our management employee relationship is different. So I think that in case an organization they have to lay off people, the employees may not feel betrayed. They may not feel betrayed because of so many factors, which is complex. And, the management would have gone out of the way to help them. So in such scenario, they may feel that, probably this is the last thing and, it was inevitable. So though on the one hand, some of the employees will get shock They will feel, sad. Many cases, I can't say percentage, but in many cases, employees will know that the management has taken all the necessary steps, and then they have arrived at this decision.
Correct.
So it will be hard on employees, but sometimes it may be different in different organizations.
Got it. But yeah, you also touched upon this topic about being IT more. So, do you think tech is the one which is always vulnerable? Because, see, our primary business at the end of the day does come a lot from the non-tech business, which is trying to digitize themselves, right? And of course, then there are software run only, I mean, software only businesses where, like food order industry and stuff. Now it has become the spine really for a lot of last mile delivery and all these Instacarts and all these apps out there. But does it mean that the tech industry will always stay vulnerable? Because if the technology adoption of this industry kind of depends on the IT also, and to drive IT industry in itself, it means that when there is a recession in the non-tech industry, it is obviously going to have a ripple effect on IT as well, tech. What do you think about that?
True. I mean, what you're saying is because IT is feeding most of the industries. So, we are doing work for the most of the other industries. So definitely what is going to happen is in case of recession in other industries, we are going to hit. That's one of the factors. Another factor I feel is the kind of growth that we've seen in our industry in last 20 years, which is huge, and many factors, the hardware has grown exponentially. The AI techniques have grown. The storage capacity has increased. So everything is going out, actually growing much, much in a larger proportion than any other industry. So when the growth is steep, the decay also will be steep, So,
Right.
so if it goes up fast, it will come up fast. So to that extent, vulnerability, I personally feel will always remain more to our industry. But in case of COVID, we saw a totally different thing. All the other industries were really, really doing bad. And because there was lockdown, nobody could move. We just went up,
Yeah, correct.
And so that's probably one of the case. But in general, I feel yes,
Right.
we have to guard.
Right.
We have various reasons, barring we are providing growth to other industries with our services. Our growth is fast. Our as I told you, our costs have increased again really, really very fast. The increments are not in percentages nowadays.
True.
Well,
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. So COVID has actually been a blip on many radars, really. It has just shown off one of the extreme exceptional scenarios where companies have kind of had a rapid growth. And yes, if the growth is steep, then yeah, the decay also may be steep enough. That's an excellent point. But okay, Sanjeev, I want to kind of conclude our conversation with last three questions for me. Please bear with me a little bit on that. So I'm going towards the emotional part of it now. Do you think is there a right way to handle layoffs? I mean, we have spoken about the inevitabilities. We know that some may do it for different reasons. The reasons may be different. But now, if it is a reality, is there a right way how we can handle a layoff?
I don't know whether one can say whether there is a right way or a wrong way. It depends on the mandate of the organization. Why are you running your organization? What are the motives? So besides servicing a particular sector, besides producing particular goods, the mandate, if it is also to take care of your stakeholders and employees, is one of the most important aspect of it, then laying off becomes one of the major problems. So I've seen in case of Tata Group, in when there was Taj was hit by these people from
Yeah.
terrorists. I heard they took care of their employees for a couple of years before
Wow.
it started again. So looking at the emotional side, depending upon the type of company, the things will change. Companies like ours, small companies, who will find ways and means to not do it. And probably, just avoid doing it, but otherwise
Right.
it's inevitable. If it is inevitable, then it will be really hard, it will be really
True.
hard. So, and in bigger organizations, because there is no much emotional bonding, it basically, you're just, it's a number to them, right?
Right.
You're removing 3,000 people, and a mandate is given by the manager to the VP to AVP, and then the last person just removes those people. So in their case, it is done, and but well, right and wrong way I cannot answer. I mean, I think if it can be avoided, that's the right way. I would put it that way.
Nice.
Mm.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so the last two questions. The first one, of course, is would you advise? So, I mean, so now you already spoke about startups who want rapid growth and they want to make it. They have like a very aggressive 5-year plan and then doing 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, then there are going to be other factors because of which that plan may not really succeed. What would your advice to business owners would be in the times of when you get these signs of recession?
No hasty and hasty decisions should be avoided. That's the first thing, because as we have been discussing about it, an organization which is well planned, running with lesser risks, they know, they have charted out their growth plans. For a growth, for R&D, they have put out money that is less risky, so I mean, this is a very difficult question, because the organization mandate is most important in this case.
Right.
People who are running the organization just for growth, they will have to face this sooner or later, because everything else is immaterial to them. And companies who are built to last, I don't know whether you've read that book, Built to Last. They had listed some 100 companies which were built to last. Unfortunately, now many of those companies are more there because IT has changed it so much. But that was from the point of manufacturing and service industries at that point in time. In Japanese organizations, you see that there are people who join there and retire. So there is a cautious handling of the companies. So no advice, but just suggestion from my experience. Growth not at the cost of risk of stopping your business. Profit is important, because otherwise you will not be able to run the business.
Right.
But everything has to be reasonable.
Right.
You cannot say that I'm doing a business of 100 rupees and my profit is 500. So finally,
I know what you're hinting.
So really no advice, but I think cautious running of a business is what I would
So
suggest.
yes, so thank you so much. So obviously now the question on the other side also of the spectrum, right? So we were talking about advice for business owners. What do you think would your advice be for employees in the times of recession?
Unfortunately, but true, what I would like to say is, again, our industry, compare it with other industries, the salaries that we have to give are very high. And many times what happens is people then they become complacent.
Correct.
They don't want to, they feel that, I can earn so much, so I'm good. No. Our industry in particular, I keep on telling my developers and boys, please keep on learning. For you, the career is going to be much more difficult than what we did.
Right.
We did projects when there was a waterfall method.
Correct.
Will probably specifications were done for 6 months. We'll
Right.
develop a project for 1 year and it was running for next 10 years. It's no more the case. It's agile.
Right.
You have to keep on learning. You need to upgrade yourself. Things are not going to remain constant. AI tools are coming. GPT chat is there. Everybody is going to push you from all the angles. Our industry, our developers, you have to be very, very, agile. Keep on learning. Keep on developing your skills. You need to not only understand technology but domain, because people who are going to be integrators are going to be required now.
Correct.
Programming skills will be required, but lesser and lesser now. So
Right.
that's most important thing I would like to say. And second, and very, very important, I'll give you an analogy. I'm earning, let's say, a person is earning lakhs of rupees, and he's spending a lakh of rupees plus more than what he's earning, because they have to buy a car, and then there's a foreign trip, and there's TVs, and so that credit card culture has come here. So you spend more than what you earn, and that's disastrous. And take a case of some other person who's earning just 50,000 rupees and he's saving 20,000 every month by carefully, living his life.
Right.
And then draw the balance sheet after 10 years. A programmer, a developer who's high skilled, earning in lakhs and spending a little more than what he's earning, and then someone who's stable, saving in what he's earning. And so train yourself and skill and save. That's the way I think things will have to be thought of.
That is brilliant, Sanjeev. Yes, I'm so glad that I'm so much aligned in the thought process as yours. It's been such a delight to talk to you, and I'm pretty sure the listeners are also going to draw a lot of value from this. Sanjeev, once again, thank you for doing this for us. It means a lot, and all the gems of words that you have shared. I'm so honored to host you. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much, Sanjeev, once again.
Thanks.
Take care and be well.
Thanks. All the best. Thank you.